Welcome to Wrestle Hook. My name is Brendan, and I am joined by my co-host Girard today to break down the best women's wrestlers of 2024. Now, we already did the men's, so if you haven't seen that video, check out our page. But we got plenty more videos coming soon to talk about, best of 2024, what our highlight moments were, highlight maybe best prospects to come out of the year, the best angles, all of those things to come. So if you're, you want some year-end stuff, some end of the year review, talking about our favorite stuff of the year, check out our page. But Girard, Women's Wrestler of the Year, I feel like there's a handful of contenders for this one. Now, obviously, I want to recognize first, I unfortunately haven't gotten a ton of time to watch some of the most common names in some of these conversations, including Sari. That's one that I've been seeing a lot of. And to be honest, I haven't really gotten to catch a lot of her matches. I saw a couple of the Marigold matches that she had earlier this year. But aside from that, that's one thing that I'm going to try to go back to and watch. So I want to just mention that before we get started because it's just a gap in my, Graps experience. So it's something that I'm going to get to because I've heard really great things. But I'm not going to have Sari on my list in this one. But for many people, it's the clear number one. So wanted to shout that out before we get started. But Girard, did you have anyone that like barely missed your list out of people that you've considered to have the best year of 2024?
So, and for myself, I am also a North American wrestling viewer. I have not really dipped into Joshi
Mm-hmm.
or just I have not stepped outside of really AEW or WWE when it comes to women's wrestling. I will say TNA is something I've dipped my toe into a lot this last year, but it's not something I have really followed the matches or seen anything that's going to stick out on my radar enough that should
Mm-hmm.
like land on this list for me. But
Yeah.
in terms of myself, it's gonna be a Bianca Belair for me. I'm looking at her as she was de-emphasized, but in a role where she could still have some great matches and some moments to shine as a singles performer, even when she gets to have those moments with Piper Niven, where she gets to show her power off and hit
That
the
match was
KOD
good.
on Piper Niven,
That
or her
SmackDown match
TV
was,
match with Iyo, because we just
yeah.
always they are just a pair that just have great chemistry and seem to knock it out the park all the time. And then we looked at just some of her tag efforts. I think her and Jade have formed a really good chemistry as just tag team partners, and they were able to have some really good matches, not only just with the Unholy Union by the end of it, but they had a couple other good matches along the way that they've had. And then they had their sixth woman with Naomi to have the big 3 moment. So I've
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed a lot of Bianca's television performances. There's not outside of the EO match, like a high level match that stands out for me that I'm like, that match is the match I want to highlight the most for her. But
Yeah.
I think she's consistent. She's always been consistent. She is that consistent, doesn't have EST in the right place, but hey, you know,
It's in it. Yeah. Can't spell consistent without EST at some point. But I'll say this. So the EO match is definitely one of her best performances for me for the year. But you mentioned the Piper KOD spot. I thought that SmackDown match was like really good. Like really, really good. And it was just random. Like it wasn't even a match I don't think that was advertised before. Like it came together during the night, they got time. They like Piper was really able to showcase her offense and really seemed like a killer. But it was like Bianca's comebacks that were because Bianca usually is portrayed as like the super athlete, like hot tag where she's just coming in and wrecking everybody, right? But in this one, she was really able to try to make that comeback for the team, and in her tag team with Jade, Bianca's had to flip that a lot lately, where she's kind of the one taking the heat, right, and trying to trying to like survive, and I think that might have helped her a little bit because this match with Piper was like it was really believable that like she couldn't quite be like the better athlete in all moments, so she had to really like dig deep and make a big comeback, and it was really good. So I would check that out. That might be one that flew under some people's radar. If you haven't seen that, you should check it out. My honorable mention is actually someone that is in NXT. It is the NXT champion Roxanne Perez. I had to mention Roxy because to me she is absolutely like when she turned heel, I was very concerned. I'm not gonna lie. I was pretty concerned that that was not gonna be the best idea. Some wrestlers it's important for them to do that during their developmental stages. But I think sometimes if you turn and you don't have the ability to work as a heel and stuff like that, it can kind of shake your confidence. And I think I've seen that across the board. One wrestler in particular that you're a big fan of, Jack Perry, might be a good example of sometimes you turn a wrestler heel and they don't really know how to work heel and they can't figure it out. And it ultimately kind of, it might shake their confidence a bit in them as a performer. And I'm not gonna lie, Roxanne has a ways to go as far as like promos, finding her voice, stuff like that. Um, that's to me the only reason she's not up right now. But she's grown more comfortable in those like as the time went on. But to me, it's been her matches that have really, really stood out. Really beyond many wrestlers that I could think of this year. Some of those matches in particular, she had a great match with Lola Vice, which Lola's pretty new to the game, and Roxanne got a great match out of her. She had a great match with Lyra earlier this year at Stand and Deliver. She had I think the Lyra match is good, but Lyra's a really good wrestler as well. I think to me some of the coolest parts of her game has been some of these matches she's had with these wrestlers that started training a year ago or 2 years ago. Other ones that come to mind for me is Thea Hale. She had a great TV match with Thea Hale. Um, like it was phenomenal, and it was not something I expected when I saw that matchup on the screen. But Roxanne really got a lot out of her. Another one's the Jada Parker singles match. Jada, she's a really good prospect. She's one of the ones that I think is definitely going to make it. But like she got a really 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 good match with Roxanne, and that's just the pro that Roxanne is down in NXT right now. She's really really helping those newer wrestlers like feel what it's like to be in a main event match. And another one I mentioned is as honorable mention is the Jordan Grace match. I thought that was really cool, and a great performance in both of them. So I had to mention Roxy. I'm probably not gonna get too much buzz to like in the general scope for Women's Wrestler of the Year, partially just because she's down there in NXT. But I think she deserves a shout.
Hey, but NXT has one of the best women's rosters
Hmm.
going today of just growing and strong talent, period. So like ain't no slight on that to be down in NXT with them. So hey, Roxy's been flying and floating above a lot of bigger name talent. She's been not you sometimes expect people that once they get around bigger name talent, they might start to like drown or like they,
Hmm.
they just falter or just their character slips, their confidence is not as strong. I don't think I've seen that from Roxy. And so I think if not, if anything, it's only made her step her game up even more. And so I like the ascension that she's on. And so I love to see what she's got coming in 2025 for sure. So definitely probably gonna drop that title. Probably will be up in the I want to say in the draft, not the transfer, I
She might
believe.
be.
But
I mean,
oh,
you
you
can
think
say
transfer?
consider. I think she's losing this belt at New Year's Evil. I think that transfer portal's gonna go for like 3 or 4 weeks. I think she's coming up after. So that's a prediction from me because I think it's going to Julia and then Julia to Stephanie at the WrestleMania weekend show that we'll be at. So that is my prediction there. Um, why don't we start our list with your number three, Gerard? Who did you have as your third best women's wrestler of the year?
Well, the other side of my honorable mention, that match that was their big highlight was Iyo. That's the other side of that match, and my number three is Iyo Sky for me. It's Iyo going into this year, seeing her cash in successfully live at SummerSlam last year, to hold that belt all the way to WrestleMania 40, to have her feud with Bailey, her a lot of her beginning, I think, of the year. I don't remember much of it, if I'm being very honest and transparent. I remember a lot of the storytelling and the building up into going into her WrestleMania match with Bailey. And from that match with Bailey forward, to me, EO has been one of the most consistent things in my memory when it comes to television and just performances across the board. She has been consistent and not only as a heel, but then her wrestling being strong enough to turn her and damage control face and to win the crowd over to the point where I feel like EO is sometimes just number two. She's just floating around as number two babyface on Raw, just behind Rhea, and only it's because of Rhea. If not, I could see EL rising up to be the number one babyface on the show. Like her wrestling has become that strong as a
Yeah.
singles, as a tag. She floats right in and she can do what she needs to with Kyrie or Dakota. They can do the 6 woman thing if they need to. EO has been consistent. She's been on fire. When she comes out to the ring, I'm paying attention.
Yeah.
And I didn't. Oh, I'm not even gonna open my mouth because that hasn't happened yet. So, but yeah, I got thoughts for the future, and I think big
Sure.
things in her future too.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I think so. At the beginning of the year, Io didn't really have many matches leading up to WrestleMania. That's the reason you didn't remember them.
Ah,
But she did have a match against Micha and Mia Yim. That was pretty good back in January. I think it was may have been a title defense. Before that Bailey match. But yeah, like you said, after that Bailey match, things kind of got kicking because it was right around that time when the Queen of the Ring stuff started happening, and she had. I mean, I was at your home for a match against Natalia, just a singles match, but that was really good, and she had a
wow.
really great match with Shayna the next week. She had a really good match with Lyra, and then after that, I mean, it just continued. She had some pretty good. She had a good performance, obviously, in the Money in the Bank as always, and then she went over to Marigold and had a great match against Utami, and like that was a match that I've watched like 3 or 4 times, which I don't really often do, to be honest, with wrestling matches. So
I
that's kind
forgot
of how
about that
much it was
match.
like. It was that's how much it stuck out to me, and then since then she's. I mean, I'm not gonna mention that, but she had a great match with Bianca. She had a even her performance at Saturday Night's main event against Liv Morgan was a pretty good sprint. I thought it was a pretty decent short match, and you know I'll say this, it does unfortunately seem like you know Io wasn't gonna get the big one against Liv on Saturday Night's main event, but I'll say this, I think there are big things to come for Io, maybe coming in April. So we'll see.
Also took the best Oblivion.
Yeah,
I thought
she's
it was
phenomenal.
Rhea at first. Nah, she took the best Oblivion on Raw. I thought her neck was broke.
Yeah.
Best Oblivion I ever seen. Like that woman knows how to sell. That woman knows how to fly. That woman knows how to grapple. That woman can do it all. I enjoy EO.
And like you mentioned too, like just the way that she became this beloved babyface like so quickly after turning, I think is worth
All
mentioning.
natural.
Because I mean, I remember this is one that I'll definitely take my victory laps about because I was saying all summer, I was like, if they just turn Damage Control face, I know they just had this thing with Bailey, but they're wrestling these matches and the crowd wants Io to win, but they're wrestling baby faces. So like, what are we doing? Because you're neutering the reactions, and once they realize, like, the Queen of the Ring was the perfect time for, like, because they really presented it like a sports style, like, not they weren't really working as much face and heel, they were just working, and the crowd started to get behind, and since they did that, I think there's big things coming. Um, for all those reasons, I actually have Io as my number two. So
Mm.
you had mentioned my number two, but I'll mention my number three because I have a feeling you might got him on your list. Um, so my number three is a wrestler that I absolutely adore, and they had definitely one of my most memorable women's matches of the year back in May at Double or Nothing, and this is the one and only Willow Nightingale.
Mm.
So Willow, look,
Mm.
I think there is, Willow there's still so much opportunity, right, to have big time pay per view matches. But in the opportunities she's gotten this year, I just think she's delivered at almost every single one. She had a great street fight with Chris Statlander at AEW All Out. We were there. We
Mm.
were there live. It was
Mhm.
one
Yes,
of
we
my
were.
favorite women's street fights that I can remember.
Mm.
I already mentioned the Mercedes match.
Mhm.
If there was, I think if there was any way you could think like, what's the perfect first Mercedes pay per view match? That was it. And
Mm.
I was hoping it would lead to a focused, like, he loses that match, but she continues her chase, and she's finally getting back towards wanting the TBS championship. We'll see if she ends up ultimately taking that from Mercedes. But that match, the Chris match, and then I thought both the Mariah May matches were actually pretty good. Especially to me, the Dynamite one was even better, which I believe was at the Owen Cup tournament. Yep. So she's had a couple of good matches with Mariah as well. And aside from that, just like her presence on every show, like the energy that she brings to the show, the way the fans get behind her. Um, I wish there was more pay per view opportunities, but those are just the big time pay per view matches. All of her TV matches to me are pretty captivating, and she does a really good job with that. So, do you have any thoughts on Willow? And did Willow make your list?
Um, no comment and no comment.
No comment?
No
How
comment
are you
and
gonna
no
no comment me?
comment. I'm a no comment and no comment. But I agree with all your points about Willow. I think those were very solid and
Okay.
valid points. I love Willow, and Willow is we love Willow in this house. So
All right, Gerard. What's your number
uh,
two?
no, I fully agree with what you said. So my number two, though,
Seems so ominous.
my number two, hey, it's turn turn it black and turn it white, because it's always gonna be timeless in this house. Because Toni Storm is my number two.
Mm,
From her match with Deonna Purrazzo, what her matches with Thunder Rosa. Because hey, she was the best part of the match,
sure.
easily. To wrestling a style that is so hard to root against her, so hard to boo her. Like, she has never truly been a heel as timeless Tony Storm. Yes, she's done heelish actions and heelish things, but I don't think the crowd has ever truly booed or disliked her in a sense, because she took a gimmick where it was two turn. Basically, the equalizer was all mixed up. Too much gimmick, not enough wrestle, not enough this, not enough that. We started to adjust some of those levels. And by 2024, she was rocking and rolling with the timeless gimmick. And so this whole year, she's been cruising and doing her own thing. And to me, story wise, she is the best woman in AEW, period, story wise. Because if we're looking at the timeless stuff leading into wrapping the Owen around Mariah winning, and then Mariah turning on Tony, Tony having to then build herself back up to have the confidence to fight her former protege at at the second biggest stadium show for AEW of all time, in front of 50,000 people, to lose her title, then to go on to Mexico and have the streak of matches in Mexico, and to go on to Japan and have the streak of matches in Japan, to then create a new ripple in her story and come back as her former self, because the guilt and the trauma and the pain and the suffering from, not only she didn't watch for the shoe, she didn't listen to her own advice, and the shoe got her, and then she couldn't recover well enough to defend herself in her title, and couldn't even pull herself together in other countries either, to the point where she needed to retire her whole persona and wrap that part of her whole career in a cocoon to be set away for a time period with some therapy and all that to be dealt with. But Tony, wrestling wise, has shown us all that through this character, and in her matches, and in her presentation. She's a dog of a bloke. What a great, what a great personality. What a great wrestler. Tony Storm, my number two. But
Yeah. Shout
for
out to Tony.
you, what are your thoughts,
What?
and who do you have to?
Um, one of my thoughts was I thought it was crazy to leave with the Deonna Purrazzo. I personally was not a fan, but
Whoa, well,
um,
oh,
so that was an interesting shout. But I do agree. Like
okay.
she had lots of good performances this year. I thought the All In match lived up to the hype of the build that had been going on for quite some time. Really, it was once that Izumi match happened on Dynamite. I feel like where she got kicked back into gear, and so a lot of us have noticed that really ever since that match she started working pretty hard. And she kind of was able to find that better blend of character and knowing who she is, is the great wrestler she is. So definitely a good shout there. Definitely like narrowly missed my list. And I just have one remaining. You do as well. I'm interested though. I would like you to
Nah,
go first
homie.
on this one.
Yeah, go ahead, homie. Keep
I want
going.
you to go
Nah,
first.
homie, go do your thing.
I want to hear what you
Go
got.
ahead and take care of your
After you.
business.
Okay, I'm gonna go first. Now
Go
listen.
ahead. Who you got next?
No. Okay. So here's the truth. This was a hard list to come up with because
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there was many women's wrestlers in the United States on WWE or AEW TV that had a consistent output, not just because of their quality of work, but also because of, the circumstances of pay-per-view opportunities, who they're in the ring with. Do the matches consistently get screwed up by disqualification? What all those factors. I don't think either company actually put their talent in a great position to succeed in that way. I think if you look on the WWE side, their champions. Sorry, they're not sniffing my list. That is not just the way that they've been built, the way that their title reigns have been. Not even close to me. And that's a big reason I think they should shake things up for 2025 after WrestleMania. Um, that being said, there was one wrestler that I thought, you know what? After looking at the big scope, right, of all of their performances, I typically, some people will probably lean more towards consistency, um, or I kind of went for this one was those high end matches, those memorable matches, those matches where I thought, wow, that was a great performance. One wrestler had the most of those of women's wrestlers in 2024. They may have had some duds along the way, matches that didn't live up to, you know, high expectations, but it's the one and only, the CEO, and it was solidified this weekend because like Mercedes, she had some matches that were rough, right? The Hikaru Shida match, I'm not gonna lie, I don't think that was 100% of Mercedes. I think Shida in 2024 is what Shida is. I don't put a ton of that on Mercedes. The other one, big time match, Britt Baker. It wasn't a good match in general. Shake that off, right? But there was 4 matches that Mercedes had this year that really stuck out to me. The Willow match, like I said already, and that was the big, grandiose pay-per-view performance, the big return. Absolutely phenomenal match. She had a great match with Stephanie Vaquer at Forbidden Door, one that was so damn good that a week later, Stephanie was in Toronto at an NXT show signing with the WWE. 1 week later, she had a match with Chris Statlander just this past pay per view cycle that was really, really good. Um, I thought it was Chris's best match of the year, probably. It was that or the Willow match, and I think that was right up there. And then she had a match against Hazuki at this New Japan Strong show this past weekend, which was also really, really good. And it was like her in a different environment, but she was so poised in that match. She was like returning to that um when she gets really frustrated, and you saw a lot of it in the Chris Statlander match where she just kicks it up a notch, um, and her aggression shows, and like she just becomes like that's what I love Mercedes for. And there was because of those 4 performances. When I was thinking about who has 4 performances like that this year, I couldn't find another person. For those reasons, despite the ups and downs, I have Mercedes as my best wrestler in the women's division in 2024.
Okay. I like that. And here's the crazy thing. She's not even on my list, and I
Yeah.
don't know why.
Well,
I
because I think
don't
a lot of it was up and down, right? You felt all you're hoping, oh, this is going to
uh,
be the pay per view performance, and then it wasn't. And then, I think, there's been inconsistencies in how she's been booked and in the ways that they've done it. But I do think, when all things are said and done, that's where my top 4 went. But Gerard, who do you have as your number 1?
all right, my dog. Look here, bro. Look here, dog.
Okay.
Start of this year, my number one, they had some losing efforts. We was in a street fight. We was in a tag street fight against Sky Blue and Julia Hart. We was on the losing side of that. We didn't win the match. It's all good. We lost a couple more matches, but we built ourselves back up.
Hmm.
We did our thing. And we got to the TBS title at Dynasty. Look, we've had matches on Collision with Deonna Purrazzo, which yes, I
What's
am
the
going
best
to
of the
be.
Deanna
I
Purrazzo?
am going to be the person pushing Deonna Purrazzo because she was signed
Are you
at
sure
one
she's not on
point
your list?
to this company, and I am a fan of Deonna Purrazzo. So let's get this woman off Collision or Rampage, and let's get her an actual story besides the tattoo story for 2
I
seconds.
don't know, man. I don't know.
2, she had a good match, and it's not to besmirch this match because I know they could go a step higher, and also the commercial breaks just kind of tore it down for me. But her and Jamie Hayter recently on Collision, her and Serena Deeb on Collision a couple of weeks ago. If we gonna talk about it, put the crown on top of Willow's head because she the Collision queen. She stay on Collision, winning and doing her thing and building up matches. We saw her live. If you look at at that photo you got of us, it's me looking at her watching wrestling from them floor
Yeah.
seats. While it is a beautiful thing. That woman has won my mother over at a live event
Wow.
last year. So like, and that's last year's business. We on new business this year, and she's still cooking and doing her thing. That Mercedes match was my favorite match for for I don't even want to talk no further because we talking about other stuff later on.
Yeah.
But man, like she has had so many consistent matches that I'm like, oh, is that one my favorite? Oh, is that one my favorite? I like this one. Oh, I like so Willow is my number one. She This is no insult. I feel like I'm only throwing myself under the bus when I say this. She's the first woman that made me she's the first woman I've ever wanted to buy her t-shirt. Like there's never been another woman. Like maybe Becky, I wanted the man shirt, but then I was like, that kind of sounds douchey. So I never ended up getting the man t-shirt because I didn't need that kind of drama. But Willow, we need to talk to you. We gotta get you some more t-shirts and we gotta get you some more t-shirts at the show. So but outside of that, nah,
They look good
this is
though.
my
It's a
number
good
one.
shirt. It's a good t-shirt.
And I got two. I got another one too. I got a
Oh.
purple one as well. So yeah, I was loading up.
Must have to bust that out for our next video. To not be recorded right after this.
Hey, it won't be. It's 2 days later.
Yeah, it's a different day.
But nah, Willow Nightingale, number one. I'm hoping for a lot more for her next year, and I'm hoping that because to me, even though her TV time wasn't where I wanted it to be, or her story highlight where I wanted to be, for live, like for wrestling performances and
Yeah.
for live performances that I enjoy,
Hmm.
she gets me to go watch Collision.
Yeah.
And that's saying something. This past Collision we watched was a very big and action-packed, and not action-packed, but star-studded edition of
With
Collision
the Hammerstein.
at the Hammerstein Ballroom. She almost made me drive 3 hours to go to that con and get a photo with her and to see them live at that con. That was 3 hours from here in Columbus. I almost took the drive. If
Hmm.
I was in a different financial place, because all these dang tickets, I would have went.
Right.
So, hey, Willow Nightingale.
Shout out to Willow. Shout out to all these women we just mentioned. Obviously lots of great performances, but if you want to know which of those matches did we like the most this year, check out our next video. We got matches of the year coming soon. But if with that being said, check us out. We're doing lots of year-end review stuff, and if you're hooked on wrestling, this is the place to be.
Willow, so nice. You had to say it twice. Peace.
Peace.